Hi, welcome to RCKicks. On today's show, well, if you saw my video that came out not long ago about my first Team Losi vintage, this is a XXX-CR on the show. Well, I've got another one. Yes, I've managed to find another vintage Team Losi. So in this episode, we're going to take a look at it. It's in a few pieces, so we've got to put it back together again, sprinkle a bit of love on it, and then hopefully we'll have a nice second Team Losi car in the collection. Hit it, Charlie. So if you haven't seen the video that I produced on my first Team Losi buggy that I've added to the collection, I'll put a link up here, go check that out. And that was this, the XXX-CR, which came out in 2007. I love it, still got some work to do. We'll be back on the show, I promise. Well, then we had to wait all the way to 2011 when we got the 22. Now this came as a kit that you had to build up yourself and add all your own electronics to. Now that was a thoroughbred race car, so you had the option of having a 4-gear mid motor or 3-gear rear motor, so you could actually pick and choose where you wanted to have the motor placed. Then 2 years later, Team Losi decided to bring out a ready to run 22, and that's what I have here. Now there was two versions of this. There was a black and then there was a blue. Now this came as a full ready to run, so you got everything you needed just to take it out the box, plug your own battery into it, and off you went. So the specs of this were, it had a 13.5 turn censored motor. It came with a Losi ESC, which had a 13.5 maximum turn, and also had a LiPo cutoff. Also, it came with a DX3E Spectrum transmitter receiver. Now, I know what you're thinking, why aren't they in the car? And yes, this one has a bit of a story to it. Now, I found this up for sale, and as far as I know, talking to the seller, it was actually, they were selling it as a company. When someone passes away or something like that, they go in and do a house sale of all the stuff. So they didn't know anything about it, but it came with pretty much everything, but they couldn't guarantee that anything worked. Now, we'll test it today, but I do seem to have everything. The only thing that seems to be missing is it doesn't have a 13.5 turn Losi motor in it. It has a 9 turn. Yeah, 9 turn 4,370 kV. So the only thing I can kind of think of was the kit motor was too slow for that person, so they decided to upgrade it, or the motor burned out or something like that. But this motor is not censored, it's a sensorless motor, so it won't work with this ESC because that's a 9 turn and this has a maximum of 13.5 turn. So I get the feeling that they decided to put a faster motor in it, but then realized that the electronics won't actually run it, and then they kind of gave up, as far as I know. So in this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to fire it up to see if the ESC actually works. The transmitter receiver, now it all looks like it hasn't done much work at all. Everything looks to be in reasonably good shape. The car itself has all its original tyres, and they don't look like they're that worn at all. Yes, there's a few little marks on it. The aluminium chassis has a few scuffs on the bottom, but it doesn't look like it did much work at all until it was just put on the side, and then who knows what happened to it. It's got the original body. I did get a full manual with it. Also, I even got the decals that were only 2 of them were cut out. So a bit of a strange one, this one. I'm really happy though. I also got some extra parts with it. Well, I'm guessing these were in the kit, but they might have been added afterwards. Comes with a 28 pinion as well. So I'm not sure if there's a pinion in the car or that's the actual one that should be. It doesn't feel like it when I push the car forward and backwards, but I've got to take the pinion and spur cover off to have a look to see what's going on with that motor. But we'll do that in a bit. So if all the electronics work, the only thing that I might have to do is put back in a 13.5 turn motor. Now, I did have a quick look online, and finding the actual correct motor for this is going to be impossible as this is so old now. I'm pretty sure I can find a 13.5 turn censored brushless motor for it to put it back to the kind of spec that it should be. Now, I'm not going to polish this one up too much because I actually want to drive this one. I do hope to actually add the 22 kit version when one comes up, so having this as an actual driver would be perfect really, and just keeping it stock and just keeping it neat and tidy. So what we're going to do, I'm going to test all the electronics to see where we're at. Then we've got to give the body a clean, fit the decals as they're supposed to be. So I've hooked the electronics back up. Obviously I haven't fitted them in the car because we need to test them, but I've got a 2S battery that's connected to the ESC, and then we're connected to the receiver, and I've plugged in the servo as well. I'm not sure if this is the correct servo that should be in the car, but I'll double check. If it is, then it can stay in the car. Right, so all we've got to do now is I've turned on the transmitter. I put some batteries in it. It seems to light up, so that means that's alive. So all we've got to do now is flick this switch, and hopefully, yep, there we go. So that's the steering. Not exactly super fast, but yeah, that's good because that means that the transmitter's working. The electronic speed controller and the receiver all seem to be working. Obviously, I can't test the motor because I've got nothing connected, but that means that the electronics are good, which means I've got a bit more value in the car, as I was a bit worried that they're not in because someone had connected this up and it had actually blown up the ESC or the receiver or something. But that means I can hopefully put the original electronics back in the car, which is kind of how I wanted it. So next, what I need to do is we need to take the cover off the pinion and spur gear to see what's going on, as there doesn't seem to be any kind of resistance there. So it feels like it doesn't have a pinion on it. So hopefully it's not a gearbox problem and they've blown up the gearbox or something. Well, there's more good news. It does actually have a pinion on it. That's a 20 tooth. It's very smooth, but obviously I'm not going to keep this motor in it, as I don't need this kind of power in a buggy like this. It'll just pull wheelies. Having a 20 tooth pinion on it. The actual slipper clutch looks to be really good. It's all in good condition. So yeah, it doesn't look like it's done that many miles at all. So what we've got to do next, we've got to take this motor out for a start. I've got to order a replacement one for it to the same spec so I can get it up and running again. We need to clean out all this gunk in here. I need to check to see if that servo is the correct one in the car. Also, I need to see if I can find some replacement tires, because I will keep these as runners if I can find replacements. If not, I will use some different tires, and then I'll keep these, because these are the kit ones for the front and rear, and they're correct. So being that I want to drive it, but I still want to keep it in as good original condition as possible. Also, we need to clean the body and then cut out the decals and fit those. So we've got quite a bit to do, so we better crack on. So there you go, there's the motor. Looks reasonably new, to be quite honest with you. It doesn't look like it's done. It's got no damage to it at all. It is missing a screw, which is kind of odd. So I'll see if I can replace that. That's a bit of a strange one. Not unless they just took a screw out and used it here, because they look very much like that screw. So I honestly don't know. But I also need to test it to make sure it actually works. But I don't see why it wouldn't work. But there we go. So I've given the chassis a bit of a clean. Used a bit of a toothbrush, and I also use this muck off stuff. It's actually really good. It's not too aggressive. Get rid of all the double-sided sticky to put the ESC back, and then the receiver goes in here, or vice versa. I can't remember yet. The receiver must go in here, and then the ESC must go over here somewhere. Not sure where I run the cables, but hey, we'll figure it out. I'll see if I can find anything in the manual. So I went online and I looked at how the electronics were fitted, and I fitted them back pretty much how they're supposed to be when it comes as a ready to run. Basically, the cable goes down this end. They actually turned the receiver upside down, and then the antenna goes through. I actually had an antenna, so I put that back in, and that's pretty much how they did it. They had it all pushed in down here. So it looks kind of back to how it should be. Obviously, I haven't done anything with the wires out the back because I need to get the motor, so that will come at a later date. So I also give it a basic clean, got out some of the dirt and the grime from inside the chassis. So that's looking all right now. So I've been letting the wheels soak in some cleaning fluid, because I don't want to put them underwater because there's foams inside, but I wanted to give it time for it to soak in so that I can use a little bit of water to get rid of it. So there you go. I cleaned up all the tires, got all the muck out of them. Also did the usual cheap trick of using Tamiya soft oil, bit left over that I had, to give the tires a bit of a conditioning as well. And then they'll dry slightly, and then I can buff them again. But they come out fine, so we can put them back on the car and finish it up. Basically, just got the stickers to do. So there you go, just with a couple of hours work, I managed to put it all back together again. I gave it a bit of a clean, sorted the tyres out, put all the electronics back in, and luckily they all seem to work fine. So I'm really happy to have it back to its ready to run stock. Unfortunately, it didn't come with the original motor, but I've managed to find one. But I was looking at some hobby wings, but they were getting a bit expensive at £50 to £60. So I managed to find one that's a bit more generic, and it looks very much like the kit motor that was in this It's going to get run, but obviously I don't want to spend too much money on it because it's just a ready to run that I want to have in the collection. Ideally, I'd like to get the 22 kit version, then maybe I'd spend a bit more money on it. Maybe I'll upgrade a little bit of this. I don't know. We'll just have to see as the Team Losi collection grows, but I'm happy to have it, and it will get run around the track when the weather improves. The only thing left to do now really is obviously fit the motor. Like I said, I want to do the rear shocks. I want to dismantle them and redo them again, because I think the back ones need different oil in them because they're a bit soft, and one seems to be weeping a little bit, so I've got to do that. But all in all, it came out fine. Stickers went on, and it just sort of brings it to life a little bit. I've got to get 2 little wing mount washers because they're missing from this, so I'll see if I can source some of those as well. So we'll be back on the show to set a time around the track once the weather improves. Now, the collection of the Team Losi is kind of going to end after this. You've got the 22, then you've got the 22 2.0. Now, that's the one I'd probably end on. The one after that is cab forward, so I think that's where I'm going to end my Team Losi collection, and obviously starting at the JRX2. So I've still got quite a few to find, and some of them are quite expensive. Anyway, thanks so much. Have a great New Year's Eve. Yeah, this will be coming out on New Year's Eve. So yes, have a good New Year's Eve. Don't drink too much, and I'll see you for 2023.